I'm dragged down the corridor, my boots scraping against the cold metal floor as alien hands grip my arms in a vice. The lights are dim, casting everything in a pale, sickly green. My head lolls from side to side, the bruises and cuts from my last round in the chair fresh and pulsing with pain. The air reeks of antiseptic and iron, a smell I've come to know too well. The chair is where they break minds. They sit you down, strap you in, and make you scream until you think there's nothing left inside you. But I'm not broken. Not yet. The hulking guards grunt in their guttural language, probably joking about which part of me they'll damage next. I know these brutes well enough. Their kind, the Hrakter, stand well over 7 feet tall with dark, leathery skin and the temperaments of angry bulls. They're the alien coalition's muscle, the first line of brutality. One of them yanks me by the arm, and I bite back the urge to react. My body's screaming from the last beating, but I let them think they've sapped my will. They want my tactical knowledge, details about Earth's fleet and our defensive protocols, but I've kept silent through all of it. I'm more valuable to them alive, so they won't kill me, not yet. My only hope of escape is finding their weak spot, figuring out where they're most vulnerable. I let them think I'm hanging by a thread while my mind works quietly, picking up pieces of information, studying their patterns, waiting. They shove me into the chair, strapping me down. I've learned to slow my breathing, to block out the pain they inflict. This time, their interrogator comes in a tall, willowy creature with spindly fingers and cold, unblinking eyes. He leans in close, too close, and his voice slips into my mind like ice. Your fleet movements, share them now, and this ends quickly. His voice is a sibilant whisper. I glare, refusing to speak. The creature sighs, and I feel his grip tighten in my mind, prodding at my thoughts, searching for cracks. I focus, steadying myself, blocking him out. Minutes, maybe hours pass as he continues, sending waves of pain to batter at my mind's defenses. But I've trained for this. I lock my mind down, channeling all my anger into a shield he can't breach. His patience wanes. Stubborn as ever, he hisses, the frustration curling through his voice. He waves to the Hrakter, and the beatings start again. Fists pound into me, splitting skin, sending hot bolts of pain across my body, but I grit my teeth and take it. They won't get anything from me. The interrogation eventually ends. They unstrap me and drag me back to my cell, a small, dank space barely wide enough for me to sit down. As they toss me inside and slam the door shut, I collapse onto the cold floor, taking a few shallow breaths. My ribs ache, maybe broken, but I'm still here, still alive, and that means there's still hope. Days, maybe weeks pass. They drag me to the chair at regular intervals, but I've come to expect it. I bide my time, waiting, observing. I notice shifts in the guards' routines, catch brief flashes of schematics in the hallways. They think I'm barely aware, but I'm putting it all together. One day, as they drag me back to my cell, I hear a voice. Faint, hoarse, but unmistakably human. Psst, Marine, it whispers from the next cell. I glance over, seeing a ragged figure in the shadows. He's thin, his skin pale, but his eyes hold a spark of determination. They got you too, I murmur. The man nods. Been here months. Corporal Hayes, UDIF, you? Lieutenant Rook Kepler, I reply, feeling a jolt of recognition. I know Hayes. We were deployed in the same sector. They got you too, huh? Yeah. They took me a week before they got you. But I've been watching, planning. There's a vent system that runs between the cells and the maintenance shafts, Hayes says in a barely audible voice. If we can get into the vents, we might have a shot at escaping. It's the first solid lead I've had. What do you need, I ask, my mind already racing through the possibilities. An opportunity. Something to distract them. If you can overpower one of those guards, maybe get a weapon, we might be able to break out, he whispers, hope creeping into his voice. I've been saving up my strength, just waiting. A plan forms between us over the following days. We speak in murmurs, exchanging information, piecing together an escape route through the base's ventilation and maintenance tunnels. Each day, I feign weakness, hoping to lull the guards into complacency. And each night, I visualize our route, memorizing each turn and exit point Hayes describes. Finally, the opportunity comes. During another round in the chair, I notice a flicker in the lights, a brief pulse. They haven't noticed yet, but I realize the base is experiencing a power fluctuation, a rare weakness in their otherwise impenetrable infrastructure. Back in my cell, I wait, tense and ready. Hours crawl by until, finally, another pulse flickers through the lights. It's a signal. This is my chance. As the guards approach to haul me to the chair again, I spring into action. I shove one guard's arm up, twisting it until I hear the satisfying snap of bone. His cry echoes through the corridor. The second guard, caught off guard, reaches for his weapon, but I'm faster. I drive my fist into his throat, snatching the weapon from his grasp as he chokes and stumbles backward. Before he can regain his footing, I bring the blunt end of the weapon down on his head, knocking him out cold. I slip down the corridor, keeping low, glancing around each corner. The base is chaotic, alarms blaring from the power fluctuations. Perfect cover. As I near Hayes' cell, my heart sinks. The smell hits me first, a mix of stale blood and rot. The cell door is open, swinging slightly, and I step inside, dreading what I know I'll find. Hayes is slumped against the wall, his face bruised and pale, eyes open but unseeing. They got to him, tortured him until there was nothing left. A deep ache wells up inside me, mixing with the fury that's been building all along. They didn't just take him, they obliterated him, made him an example. I close his eyes gently, my mind going cold. The rage turns sharp, a blade honed to a deadly edge. I'll make them pay, every last one of them. Moving through the base feels like slipping through shadows. I've mapped out the guard patrols, and I use every bit of that knowledge, sidestepping each one until I reach a small armory tucked away near the hangar. I grab what I can, a pulse rifle, a few grenades, and a combat knife that feels familiar in my grip. The corridor ahead leads straight to the hangar, where small alien crafts sit in tight rows, most of them empty. I choose one, a sleek, agile-looking fighter, and slip into the cockpit. Its controls are alien but intuitive, and as I power it up, a voice blares over the comm system. Unauthorized access in Hangar 7. Initiate lockdown. Too late. The fighter's engines rumble to life, the thrusters spooling as I flick switches, aligning the ship for a launch. I hear pounding footsteps and spot guards racing down the corridor. I don't have time to think. I hit the throttle, and the fighter blasts out of the hangar, shooting into the darkness of space. The base shrinks behind me, a cold metal husk against the stars. But as I drift through the vast emptiness, the weight of it all hits me. Hayes is gone. I've escaped, but they've taken so much. My body aches from the beatings, my mind frayed from the torture. But one thing remains sharp, a single thought that cuts through the pain. They tortured one human, thinking they'd break us, thinking they could silence us. They didn't realize what they'd set loose. Hayes' memory fuels me, a burning resolve that strengthens with every breath. I set a course away from the base, every scar and broken bone a testament to what they've done. But this isn't over. I won't just be a survivor. I'll be their reckoning, their nightmare. I'll return not just for myself, but for every human they thought they could break, every voice they tried to silence. The stolen fighter hums quietly beneath me, cloaked but clinging to the last threads of its fuel. Outside the cockpit window, the black expanse of space stretches out endlessly, dotted with distant stars and speckled with coalition patrol ships. It's been a tense few weeks since my escape, and I'm running low on everything: fuel, rations, even morale. But none of that matters right now. I have a plan. I lean back, running my hand over the console's alien controls, listening to the quiet whine of the cloaking system draining power from my already thin reserves. Every nerve is alert, every muscle tense, waiting for a slip-up or a malfunction that would make my tiny ship light up on their radars like a distress beacon. The Coalition wants humans in their ranks as slaves or specimens, not enemies, and they definitely didn't count on one human slipping through their nets, picking apart their defenses, and haunting their well-oiled supply chains. But that's exactly what I plan to do. My HUD flickers, pinging softly as my scans pick up a small convoy a few clicks away. 3 ships, laden with goods bound for a distant outpost, food, fuel, and something else, likely munitions. Supplies the Coalition relies on to keep its grasp firm across the galaxy. I bring my ship around, inching closer, watching the convoy move in a slow, predictable formation, their shields lowered in friendly territory. They're practically asking for trouble. My fingers tighten on the controls, and with one press, I deactivate the cloak and engage the thrusters, surging toward the convoy's flank. My HUD locks onto the closest target, a mid-sized freighter hauling fuel cells. Perfect. I unleash a torrent of plasma bolts, watching them slice through the shields and tear into the ship's side. The freighter veers left, alarms flashing through its windows as it struggles to stabilize. A split second later, the escort ships scramble into action. Their laser turrets rotate toward me, but I'm already in motion, weaving around them, keeping their fire focused on open space. They're slow, lumbering beasts compared to this alien craft, and I know it. I loop around, sliding into position behind the second escort and firing. My shots rip through its engines, and it explodes in a flash of blue light, leaving nothing but debris. The remaining freighter is all that's left, trailing fuel and damage, struggling to limp away. I fire a few more rounds, targeting their engines, and watch as the ship comes to a shuddering halt. Then, I cut my engines, drifting just close enough to hear the panicked radio chatter. "This is Coalition Transport Vessel 764 requesting immediate backup. We're under attack, unknown assailant, possibly at a ghost." I smirk, keeping the comm silent. They won't know who or what hit them. Just another transport ship fallen victim to the phantom terror they're trying so hard to ignore. By the time Coalition reinforcements arrive, I'll be long gone, cloaked and out of sight. They'll find nothing but ruins. And with every ship that disappears, every outpost that goes silent, the Coalition loses more faith in its own control. Weeks pass, and each strike is a fresh scar across Coalition space. I hit their supply routes, then dip low and strike their communication arrays. Each hit is precise, calculated, and brutal. News spreads through the galaxy, the Coalition's fleet struggling to keep up with each new report of attacks and sabotage. But they don't suspect a lone human. No, they suspect something bigger, a faction, or even a rebel force undermining their authority. The thought makes me laugh, even if only for a moment. But every fight takes a toll. I'm low on fuel again, and supplies are running dry. I need a safe harbor, a place to refuel and recharge. But Coalition space is vast, and allies are rare. Then, as if summoned by desperation, the voice crackles over my comm. "This is Archontal Outpost requesting identification of unknown vessel. You are in restricted Coalition space." I hesitate, hovering my hand over the cloaking controls. I was certain I'd been invisible. But there's something in the voice, something not like the usual Coalition demands. A hint of caution rather than aggression. I take a gamble. "Lieutenant Rook Kepler, Udif," I reply, my voice low, wary. "You're not Coalition, are you?" The silence stretches long enough that I start doubting my own instinct. But then, the voice returns, softer this time, with a hint of something unplaceable. "Not in any way that matters," he says. "This is Zadrian Teleth, former Coalition officer, disillusioned, if you will. I've heard of you." The word "former" hangs heavy in the air. This could be a trap, a ploy to capture the so-called human specter haunting Coalition space. But I don't detect any Coalition ships nearby, no sign of the usual patrol. It could be worth the risk. "Zadrian," I say cautiously, "you've heard of me." "I have, Lieutenant. Stories of a human carving through Coalition supply lines. They call you a myth, a specter. But you and I both know better, don't we?" He pauses, and there's a note of amusement in his voice. "You're causing quite a stir." I swallow down the automatic distrust that rises, fighting back memories of the interrogations, the torture. But Zadrian's voice doesn't hold the mockery or cruelty of his former Coalition comrades. Just curiosity. "I need fuel," I admit. "Supplies. If you're willing to help me, I can keep hitting them. They'll never see it coming. Another long pause, then, "Doc at the outpost. I'll provide what I can. But Lieutenant, let's make one thing clear, you'll have to trust me. A little, at least. Trust is a rare commodity these days, but right now, I have no choice." Zadrian is lean, with the angular features typical of his species, the Telnari, and a sharp, calculating gaze that makes my skin prickle. He studies me for a moment, his eyes catching on the bruises that linger across my face, my torn, blood-stained clothes. I can see the flash of recognition in his eyes. He's seen torture victims before. "You've been through hell," he murmurs, his voice low, almost understanding. I don't respond. Instead, I watch him closely as he hands me a bundle of supplies, a ration pack, fresh water, and a small toolkit to patch up my ship's failing systems. As he steps back, his eyes narrow. "You're not the first human I've met," he says slowly, weighing his words. "And I know what my people have done to yours. I left the coalition because I couldn't stomach the atrocities, the corruption, the disregard for anyone who wasn't one of them." "Funny," I mutter, tearing into the rations. "I thought every coalition officer was the same. All you did was look down on us." "Not all of us," he replies, his tone cold but restrained. "Some of us saw the coalition for what it was. I didn't betray them. They betrayed everything we once stood for." I chew in silence, processing his words. He could be lying, could be trying to win my trust, but something in his voice rings true. And if he's on my side, he's got access to a treasure trove of information. "So," he says, breaking the silence, "where's your next target?" I let the hint of a smirk slip through, glancing at him with a raised brow. "Why? Planning to betray me?" Zadrian doesn't flinch. He meets my gaze with a steady calm, a resolve I can't ignore. "I want the coalition to burn just as much as you do, Lieutenant. Maybe even more." With Zadrian's intel, my strikes become deadlier. He feeds me information about weak points in the supply chains, isolated communication posts, and transport schedules. I watch from the cockpit as the chaos ripples outward, spreading through coalition space, and just as I'd hoped, whispers grow into tales of the vengeful human ghost. The coalition throws more and more resources into defending their convoys, scrambling ships and soldiers to patrol areas I might strike next. They're paranoid, jumping at shadows, but they still have no clue it's just me behind the attacks. Each strike brings a fresh wave of satisfaction, a small taste of revenge. But I can tell Zadrian is growing nervous, his demeanor shifting from calm cooperation to a wary tension. Then, one night, I receive a calm signal. "Lieutenant," Zadrian's voice is a strained whisper. "They've found me. I held out as long as I could, but they have ways of making you talk." The words slam into me, and I grit my teeth, struggling to hold down the anger bubbling up. He tried. He warned me. I owed him at least the attempt to save him. "Where are you?" I demand. "Sector 24, Gile System. They've set a trap, Lieutenant. They're expecting you. Don't come for me." But I'm already moving, the engines humming as I punch in the coordinates. Zadrian's done enough. I won't leave him to suffer under the same monsters who tortured me. I make it to the coordinates in record time, scanning for signs of his prison, hoping for a small chance to slip in and pull him out. But the coalition was waiting. Ships surround me the moment I come out of warp. Lasers tear through the shield, rocking my fighter, systems failing one by one. I dart and weave, firing back, but they outnumber me 10-1. The ship takes a brutal hit to the engines, and alarms blare as I lose power. Smoke fills the cockpit, the crackle of failing circuits loud in my ears. In a desperate move, I reroute the remaining power to the cloaking device, flickering into invisibility just long enough to slip between two ships, firing at them to create a gap. The moment I'm clear, I hit the emergency warp, and the ship lurches as it jumps through space, damaged and barely holding together. I drift, battered and bruised, limping through the void with what's left of my ship. Every piece of it groans with damage, the hull scorched, systems hanging by a thread. But I'm alive. and as the stars come back into focus, I know I've left an impression. The Coalition will keep searching, throwing more of their resources into hunting me down. They're afraid now, clinging to power as rumors spread across the galaxy of the human ghost. They've stretched themselves thin trying to cover every possible vulnerability, every angle I might use. This is just the beginning. They're learning, slowly, what one determined human can do. The Coalition commanders gather in the high-vaulted war room, tension thickening the air like smoke. Their voices reverberate in quiet murmurs, discussing defense maneuvers, recent reports of sabotage, and whispers of a single human who has spread fear and chaos across Coalition space. The leaders exchange nervous glances as they plot, grasping at plans to snuff out this human ghost before his presence becomes something more dangerous. Then, without warning, the room plunges into darkness. A collective gasp fills the space as all holograms flicker and vanish, leaving the commanders in pitch-black silence. A brief hum signals a calm override, and then a voice hard, cold, and unyielding echoes through the room. You tortured one human. Now you'll face the consequences. The Coalition leaders remain frozen, a chilling realization sinking in. Their worst nightmare has breached their most secure stronghold. The fortress lies before me, the heart of Coalition operations, a bastion of terror and authority that has held entire systems in subjugation. The power grid pulses, light the massive walls with a low, menacing glow. But tonight, this fortress isn't impenetrable. They've poured every available resource into hunting me down, leaving their fortress vulnerable, weakened by overextension. I'll exploit every weakness, every chink in the armor, and bring this empire to its knees. Around me, an unlikely army gathers in silence, those who've lived in chains under Coalition rule, their worlds scarred by brutality and oppression. Each face carries the same hardened resolve, the weight of loss. They've waited for a chance to fight back, a chance to strike at the heart of their oppressors, and together, we'll make them pay. We move under cover of darkness, slipping past their patrols and scaling the outer walls. The Coalition's fear has driven them to paranoia. They've spread their forces thin, pulling guards from crucial defenses. That arrogance will be their downfall. A soft voice crackles over the comms, another disillusioned Coalition officer who's joined our cause. You're in. Proceed with caution. Internal defenses are still active. I smile grimly, moving forward with my team. It's been a long road, but every step has led me here. Explosions ripple through the fortress as we hit our first targets. Coalition soldiers scramble, caught off guard and unprepared for the coordinated assault tearing through their stronghold. My allies, beings from countless worlds, each with a story of suffering and survival, move through the halls with the ease of those who've waited lifetimes for this moment. Every breach, every hall taken, brings us one step closer to the command center. In the chaos, Coalition soldiers, those who once guarded their leaders with unwavering loyalty, begin to waver. They've heard rumors, the stories of the human ghost haunting Coalition territory, one who defied their leaders and rained down vengeance from the shadows. Now, seeing my forces tearing through their ranks, they start to break, some even throwing down their weapons and joining us. You're fighting for nothing, I tell them, my voice steady as I stride through the carnage. The Coalition has left you for dead. Join us, fight for your freedom, for your own worlds. Together, we bring justice. More join our ranks, their loyalty to the Coalition dissolving under the weight of hope and anger. They've been betrayed just as we have. And as our numbers swell, the Coalition's lines crumble. I reach the final corridor, where the command center waits. The doors are reinforced, but the explosions have already weakened them, and they open with a satisfying hiss. I step inside, my allies at my back, weapons raised and resolve unshakable. Behind the massive console, a handful of Coalition commanders stare at me, their eyes wide with disbelief and terror. The realization hits them in a wave. They've spent months dismissing the threat of one human as impossible, absurd. Now, standing before them, bloodied and unyielding, I'm their reality. One of them, a wrinkled, high-ranking officer with cold, calculating eyes, steps forward, trying to hide the fear simmering in his gaze. One human did all of this, he mutters, barely above a whisper. I feel a surge of satisfaction, but I keep my voice steady. I warned you. You tortured one human, but that was just the beginning. Every strike, every life taken, every world you scarred, this is your reckoning. Their fear deepens, the weight of their mistakes settling in. They look at each other, realizing that their own arrogance has brought them to this moment. I raise my weapon, and my allies do the same. The coalition leaders barely have a moment to react before the blaster shots echo through the command center, ending their lives in a swift, final justice. But before the last commander's body even hits the ground, a shrill alarm sounds, and red lights pulse through the room. The fortress shudders, and the walls begin to tremble. My HUD flashes with a warning self-destruct protocol activated. The coalition, in a last act of desperation, has set the fortress to blow, determined to take me and my allies with it. A frantic voice crackles over the comms, confirming my fear. Rook, they're triggering a countdown 30 minutes until detonation. The whole place will go up. A cold, calculated part of me admires the final trap. The coalition was willing to destroy everything, their fortress, their soldiers, and themselves to kill me. But they underestimated how much I've learned. I sprint to the command console, my fingers flying over the alien controls. I've spent months studying their technology, memorizing each system I sabotaged, every hack and override. The coalition never expected a human to understand their systems so well. I dig through layers of encrypted protocols, my breath steady as I focus on disabling the countdown. One of my allies watches, anxiety lining his face. Can you stop it? Watch and learn, I reply, pulling up the security override I pieced together from captured data. The screen flickers as I run through the final bypass, locking down the detonation sequence with seconds to spare. The lights stabilize, and the fortress stills, the threat neutralized. A wave of relief floods the room, and my allies exchange looks of awe. But I don't waste time celebrating. The fortress may be secured, but this isn't over yet. Outside, the coalition's final defense crumbles. Our forces push forward, driving back the remaining soldiers and securing the fortress. I step out onto a high platform overlooking the battle, taking in the scene below the smoldering remains of coalition artillery, my allies rallying as they drive back what remains of our enemies. Victory is close, but my thoughts drift to those lost along the way. Corporal Hayes, who didn't survive the torture chambers. The countless prisoners who endured the coalition's cruelty, never to see freedom. This fight wasn't just for me, it was for them. Each of them stands with me in spirit, their sacrifices pushing me forward even now. With a final command, I order my forces to hold the fortress. The coalition's stronghold, the heart of their operations, is ours. The galaxy will hear of this victory, and they'll remember that one human, defying every odd, brought an empire to its knees. As I look out over the ruins of what was once the coalition's symbol of power, I feel a quiet sense of closure. The galaxy will think twice before it underestimates Earth, before it dares to subjugate our people again. With the fortress secured, I return to the ship, battered but standing strong. The cost has been high, and the journey to this point paved with loss and sacrifice. I power up the controls, guiding the ship away from the fortress, watching as it becomes a shrinking silhouette against the stars. But in my mind, the coalition is defeated, their power shattered, and as I drift into the vastness of space, I know that this victory will leave ripples across the galaxy. They will remember Earth. They will remember humanity's strength, our resilience, and our willingness to fight, even when the odds are impossibly stacked against us. I'm not just a survivor. I'm a reminder, a living testament to the strength of one human's resolve. And for as long as I draw breath, they'll never forget.